And Andy, I'm sure you've got plenty of stories, but can you share a few that'll stick out in your mind and entertain our viewers? Because everyone loves the A6 on this channel.
Um, in my training, when I was getting into the advanced portions, that's when we started to do night and day terrain following missions, besides just basic bombing missions. And I vividly recall going out on my first night terrain following low level. We had flown the same route late that afternoon. So I knew the route, and of course the instructor pilot knew all of this just intimately. Went out and we had the same aircraft, absolutely same aircraft. All it did was a turnaround inspection after we came back in. I knew how much LOX we had on board. A6 carried 2 liquid oxygen tanks back in the rear compartment, um, which was critical because that's also where we ducted a lot of bleed air from the A6 J52 engines to the air conditioning and pressurization systems. So you're putting bleed air off a jet, off a turbine, right by liquid oxygen bottles. Real kaboom factor.
Hmm.
Anyway, I think, almost full LOX bottles. We went out, flew the mission, and dropped some blue bombs at the range at Pendleton, Oregon that night. We got back. As we came in, started to shut down, went through everything, we realized that between the two of us, we had pretty much depleted 2 20-liter oxygen bottle or tanks because
Hmm.
you're focused. And that was stood true all the rest of the time. You're at night, it's dark, you're relying on the other guy, um, which leads to a crew thing people should be aware of. We have to say in the A6, it takes 2 to concur to descend. It takes 1 to climb. Either pilot, nav aren't comfortable, boom, we're out of there and get up to a more comfortable altitude. That was one. Um, One of the things that was incredibly satisfying for us was satisfying slant dissatisfying. 1990, August 1990, we are just had embarked on USS Nimitz for an extended air wing cruise, and Iraq invades Kuwait. Uh-oh. Let me see. The Navy has a full up air wing on a carrier. We're ready to go. Oh, crap. The pilots are going, shit, I bid for trips next month on the airline. The rest are going, well, this is convenient, inconvenient. So we actually only half jokingly put somebody out on the air wing staff to see which way the sun was coming up in the morning. And we were out in the Pacific. Because if the sun was coming up over the stern, we were headed westbound,
Hmm.
headed for the Gulf. If it was coming up over the bow, then we were still in Eastern Pacific waters.
Hmm.
Um, but our air wing was tasked with developing and testing the tactics that were used in Desert Storm. So every week we would get these taskings to, hey, we need you guys to go fly this profile, do this, drop that over at Fallon, and get back with us, debrief it, tell us what's working. And so we became the guinea pigs for a lot of the tactical usages that got employed. On the other hand, we were 4 days from deployment as a squadron when the armistice was signed in 1991. We were up, ready to go. We had everything packed up. We were going to be land based from Riyadh, I think, cohabitating with the Marines because they had A6 parts and they had A6s there. And we were going to go out with them and do the combat thing. So we were the almost not quite made it A6 squadron, at that time.
Yeah, so how did you actually feel about that? Were you up for going, or were you kind of glad it didn't happen?
Up for going. That was our mission. That's what we did.
Right, okay.
When they asked for, ostensible volunteers, we all volunteered. We all said, yeah, we're going to go. This
Right,
is what
yeah.
we do.
I'd be terrified.
Happy to do it.
Yeah.
And that leads to some interesting discussions on a strategic basis on why, unlike the Air Force and the Army, the big Navy, the regular U.S. Navy, chose not to activate either CAG 20 or CAG 30. They activated the transport guys, a slew of other units, but the air wings were not activated, unlike the Air Force, who activated guard wings and Air Force Reserve wings and stuff like that. But well above our pay grade. Yeah, we were frustrated because we had worked hard to set it all up. I don't think anybody was particularly, oh boy, glad I didn't go to war.
Mm.
I mean, this is what the job is. This is what you recognize and accept what you're supposed to do. This is the mission. If you didn't want a mission, why did you join the Navy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a volunteer force. You didn't have to be put in. I didn't know of anyone who felt that way. I mean, that's a great question. But yeah, we were very motivated.
Yeah, it's just like I asked that question because I've talked to some people, no names mentioned here, but they just wanted to fly. They weren't particularly bothered about doing the bombing, let's say. They were just wanted to fly. But other people were like, yeah, I want to go. I'm ready to go. Other people were like, I would have been hesitant about doing that. So it's quite interesting to get your perspective on that as well. Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to get shot at.
Yeah.
I sure as hell didn't. Or if it wasn't it. Winston Churchill said, "Nothing is so more exhilarating than being shot at and missed."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a recognition because we were briefed at the time before we went that Iraq had the most rigorous air defense system since North Vietnam. And we knew how many A-6s got shot down over North Vietnam. But then we watched as we systematically dismantled that air defense system. You know, we were going, yeah, nicely done. And recognizing a lot of, oh yeah, we did that at Fallon back in September that time. You remember that time when we did this and that at Fallon and then did a long phone debrief about what happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was kind of neat to see what they'd asked us to try get utilized. So there was a little bit of, distant gratification.
Yeah, I suppose. But let's get on to a more social side here. What was the banter? What was the banter like going on to an A-6 Squadron? And can you tell us some stories from that? There must have been some great chat there.
It was actually a lot of fun because coming out of a support squadron into a frontline combat squadron, different mindset. Warheads on foreheads. That's what you do. And that starts right off in the RAG, no matter what you're coming from. And that very much combat mentality. And trying to do it as absolutely best. Every squadron, I'm sure everybody who's talked to, every squadron is competitive in and among itself in the ready room. Landing scores at the boat, although since we only went to the boat to carrier qualify about every 6 months, that was always recognized. But we were, as I mentioned last time, we were all guys with fleet tours. So little different, been there, done that. It's not all new. For myself, my peers coming out of the whale, we had a double learning curve because we were competing with other BNs who were really good and really good at their job, learning from them as much as trying to keep up with among ourselves. And so, but there was a real camaraderie. Any squadron, the Navy Reserve squadrons, unlike Navy Fleet squadrons, you could be there literally for many, many years. I was in 308 for 5 years. I was in 304 for 4 years. You it becomes almost, well, I think I referred to it, somebody heard me say, the world's greatest flying club, because you get to go fly all the time,
Awesome.
and your maintainers, your reserve maintainers, work on these same aircraft also for many years. So they know those individual airframes intimately, and also build some strong relationships. And I've maintained, like anybody does, some relationships over the years with the guys, and some interesting overlaps. So it was kind of fun in that regard. The squadron atmosphere. We talked about the MARDET, Marine Detachment, and they were great because we would get requests from Army Guard units from all over and up and down the West Coast. Hey, we need to train our guys on forward air controlling. Can you send some aircraft to do that? And almost invariably, we'd find the Marines and say, you guys go do that because that's Marines shit, and they would happily go. Yeah. And of course, for the BNs, there's your bombing scores from going out to the range. That was always you're always looking for the best bombs. I will say honestly, with truth in my heart, I was a better navigator than I was a bombardier, but I had my hits. I had my shares of really good bomb hits. Uh, just not as many as a lot of the other guys, but I worked at it. It was tough for me towards the last 2 years in the squadron because I was commuting out from the upper Midwest. I was out at the squadron about 2 weeks a month, just like
Mm,
that airline job I was going to have, and decided not to.
mhm.
Um, that began to take a little bit of toll, but stayed at it. And I eventually realized in 92 that it was time, with kid at home. My late wife was working usual uh, medical industry or medical community, 10 to 14 hours a day, stuff like that,
Yeah.
that it was time to draw back a little bit.
Mhm.
So I exited semi gracefully, and went on to another, 11 years in the doing other Navy stuff. But those 4 years I got about 100 hours a year, maybe a little more. Got some traps, dropped live ordnance, inert ordnance, lots and lots of low level flying, because that's what we did and had a blast. Um, if folks are interested, out there on YouTube are some low res made on video VHS recorders, but there's a 4-part video on the Firebirds on VA 304
Nice.
that is on YouTube out there somewhere. That is what life was like for the squadron. I'm in it in a couple of places. In fact, my farewell, see y'all later speech, part of it is on there, and I gave our maintenance guys a framed copy of a beautiful etching of a A-6 in squadron colors, all bombed up and stuff like that. And I think after my last flight, it's tradition in the Navy. Don't know about the Air Force. When you come off your last flight, you're going to get hosed down. Just like you've seen the arcs of
Yeah.
fire hoses over airplanes, you get that, except it's right on you. And there's some video of that in there too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, went out armed with blue bombs and bombed the crap out of dead tanks and Bravo 15 at Fallon after doing a scorching low level.
Yeah. It doesn't get better than that, does it? So just
It
a couple of
does not.
questions. Absolutely not. So a couple of questions to wrap up here, Andy. What would you say the best thing about being a BN on the A6 was?
The absolute vitalness of what that job was. You can't fly the A6E without the BN. Well, you can do it, but you're not doing anything other than flying an airplane. The mission was the BN seat. That's what I was there. Get us to the plan on how we're going to get to the target, put that ordnance exactly where it needs to be, on time, on target, and egress safely. It was all in my seat, from figuring out the route, the turn points, the exact time to that turn point, on to the next turn point, doing something called radar predictions. What is that turn point? What is that target going to look like at the altitude I'm coming in at the speed, everything else? We were just beginning to get what was then called, I think it was the Target Attack Multi-Purpose Planning System, TAMPS, where you started to have computer assisted planning, but a lot of it was manual. And then having all of the turn points and the altitude of that turn point put into the analog digital memory system, and then which was all read out on the cockpit. Your readers can see some of the pictures of the BN side of an A6E cockpit. All of those readouts, your lat long, ground speed, true air speed, all of that other stuff, making sure you've got the proper selections in the weapons panel all set, making sure master arm is on, everything, you got to be able to do it. Locking up that target, getting everything going, getting those bombs off, hitting the target, and getting out. Absolute exhilarating, loads of fun. I'm so glad I got to do it. I'm glad they needed BNs. Glad they needed BNs at my rank level. It was an amazing mission, a whole different world from my whale life. And it made me better later on when I spent 4 years teaching Navy battle group staffs, who were mainly sub guys and surface guys and people not in the strike warfare community, how warheads on foreheads, how strike warfare at sea, over land, all integrated to what their responsibilities were on the battle group staffs that they were manning.
Mm-hmm.
So, God, yeah. And low levels. Oh my God, I love low levels.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting paid. The best story I've got, one of the best. Can't remember the route's name, but it used to go make a big turn out over, you went over the Sierra Nevada, you entered and in the eastern Sierra Nevada, and just around the Tonopah test range, know a lot of your folks know about Tonopah, made a big turn north, and you paralleled US 395, which is a long, straight desert highway. You're down about telephone pole height. You're offset a little bit from the highway. And I vividly remember seeing out ahead the flashing lights of a Nevada Highway Patrol car. Obviously had somebody stopped. And we kind of maybe eked down a little low, maybe a little close to the highway. And went zorching past these guys. Wow. And as we went past, I remember vividly looking out the side of the window, seeing the non-trooper pointing up at us. And I can imagine saying, "Speeding? You think I was speeding, officer? What about those assholes?"
Awesome.
There is a story out there. I have no direct knowledge of this story.
No, of course not. No. Yes.
Of course not. I was not there, and you can't prove anything.
Exactly.
But at times, because the A6 had a a way of locking up moving target indicator, we could actually lock up moving vehicle traffic. That was developed because of the truck traffic on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and became very useful later on. You could lock up an individual vehicle, target it, and hit it. Our radar used, I want to say, lower K band, maybe an upper J band, which, by the way, is the same radar used by the Washington State Highway Patrol for speeders.
Okay.
And it was always fun out in eastern Washington with the big, long, straight interstates to practice this by locking up on, say, a semi doing 85 and a 70. And watching that target suddenly decelerate rapidly because we'd set off his radar indicator and he thought it was a highway patrol car and plummeted in the ready room in VA 128 was a thank you plaque from the Washington State Highway Patrol for our efforts to
Oh,
control
really?
traffic speed.
That's incredible.
Yeah, some of the fun. Some people said when you did it at night, you could see the IR signature coming off the brakes as they heated up, trying to slow themselves down.
But
And
yeah.
several guys did have Washington State Highway Patrol patches on their flight suits.
Oh, did they really? Oh, that's really cool. But yeah, it sounds like you had a great time on the A6. But one
They
last
did.
question to wrap
Yeah.
up. If you could have one last flight, should I say, in an A6 or a whale, either variant, which one are you going for?
I hate you. That's a tough one. That really is. Um, One last low level, but we flew low levels on the whale.
Yeah, yeah.
We did low levels. There were a few routes that we did in the whale. Um, it's not so much which platform for me, but I want to go back and do the $1,000,000 ride one more time through the Cascade Mountains.
Mhm.
Absolutely stunning, stunning route. Again, Google $1,000,000 ride Cascade Mountains. You will see videos. I want to say it's the VR 1357 route, but I could be way wrong on that. Starts just across the Columbia River near Yakima, Washington, and you work your way all the way up the length of the Cascades till near Mount Stevens, Washington, when you make a big left turn, shoot down the Stevens River Valley, and boom, there's Whidbey Island.
Wow.
That is
Yeah.
a remarkable low-level route. Absolute friend, and it's still used to this day. Sadly, there was a growler mishap about 18 months ago. Lost an aircraft
Right.
there. Um, Again, that's part of the job, sadly. But not so much the which, but when, because
Right.
each one was loads of fun. I mean, I would translant and transpack in a whale again in a heartbeat, daytimes. I would go back to the boat. What I would do, absolutely, even now, I'd love to get one more trap.
No, that'd be
Uh,
cool.
but I know that ain't happening. But if you were to offer me, yeah, where's my G suit? Where's we're on? When do we man up? When's the
Ready to
brief?
go. Yeah.
I'm going back to the boat daytimes.
Yeah.
Nighttime, yeah, no.
Yeah, definitely
Ask
not.
anybody. You want to go back to the boat at night? And you're lucky you won't get punched in the face.
Oh, brilliant stuff. Well, thanks a lot for coming back on the show and sharing your A6 time. I'm sure we'll get back on because there's so much more to unpack. But if people haven't seen the whale episode, where can we find you online? I think you're on X and you're on your platform.
I've been known to be found at Andy Niemyer on Facebook, because all us old folks are on Facebook these days, and on X as A Niemyer, first initial, last name. Um, you'll see lots of reposts of airplane stuff and an occasional curmudgeonly harumph, maybe two harumphs.
That's what we want. Well, Andy, thank you very much for coming back on the show. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Mike, it's absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and I hope folks get a little bit better insight on what it was like in some of the great years of naval aviation. But in 5 years, you'll have somebody on who flew Hornets in the teens and they will be talking about how that was their golden era in naval aviation. It just keeps on keeping on, and hopefully for another 100 years.
Absolutely. So fingers crossed for that. That's why I'm doing this, so to keep the aviation
And
history alive. So
thank you for all the great air crew.
thank
All
you.
these folks with wonderful stories, wonderful tales. You're an incredible resource for insights and stories, and keep getting everybody on.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, I'm sure we'll be in touch soon, but thanks again, mate.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks a lot. And to all my fellow flyers out there, y'all be safe.
Cheers.